My wife was not the most beautiful woman in the room. That was why I spent 2 years trying to change her. But the night she left me, I found out she was the reason my grandfather had lived long enough to save me. I do not want your apology anymore. My wife said those words beside 4 suitcases at our front door. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking, but what destroyed me was not the luggage. It was the old photograph she placed on the table. A 16-year-old girl sitting beside my grandfather in a hospital room, holding his hand, smiling at him like family. That girl was my wife, and until that night, I had never known why my grandfather forced me to marry her. My name is Adrian Lancaster. At 29, people called me the youngest billionaire in the city. Magazines called me powerful. Investors called me brilliant. Women called me desirable. But my grandfather called me blind. Edward Lancaster built our family empire from nothing. He believed character mattered more than beauty. But I did not. I wanted a wife people would admire. A perfect woman. Elegant. Polished, beautiful enough to make a room go silent. Then one evening, my grandfather placed a photograph in front of me. "This is Olivia Bennett," he said. "You will marry her." I stared at the picture. She looked ordinary. Simple dress, simple hair, no glamour, no expensive beauty. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He was not. "If you refuse," he said, "you leave this family with nothing." I called it blackmail. He called it protection. 3 months later, I married Olivia. Neither of us looked happy. I saw her as a punishment. She saw me as a man who had already judged her before knowing her. Our first months were full of small wars. I corrected the way she spoke at dinners. She told me I embarrassed waiters by treating them like servants. I told her she laughed too loudly. She told me I cared too much about strangers' opinions. I bought her expensive dresses. She donated half of them. I hired a stylist. She fired her after 1 hour and said, "I am your wife, Adrian, not your project." That sentence annoyed me, because deep down, it was true. Still, Olivia never fought cruelly. She noticed things when I came home late. There was food waiting in my study. When I had migraines, the lights were already dimmed. When I was angry, she did not argue immediately. She waited until I was calm and told me exactly where I was wrong. Once, after a brutal meeting, I found a cup of tea on my desk with a note, "You forgot lunch again." Billionaires also need food. I almost smiled. Almost. Over time, I started depending on her without admitting it. She knew which employee had a sick child. She remembered the gardener's daughter needed school books. She sent flowers to my assistant when her mother died. Not for attention, not for praise. She simply cared, and that confused me because in my world, kindness usually came with a price. Then the market crashed in 1 week. I lost nearly $2 billion. Friends disappeared. Relatives stopped calling. Business partners acted like I had a disease. I sat in my office, staring at the numbers, feeling fear for the first time in my life. Olivia walked in with tea and a notebook. "I made a plan," she said. "A plan for what?" "In case we have to start over." I stared at her. "You would stay if I lost everything?" She looked almost offended. "Adrian, I married you, not your stock portfolio." And she smiled gently. "Unfortunately, your annoying personality would still come with us for the first time in days." I laughed. That should have been the moment I understood her, but I was still blind. I softened sometimes. Then I became cold again at parties. I still compared her to women who knew how to pose, how to smile, how to impress. I never cheated, but I made her feel like she was always being measured against someone prettier. That was its own betrayal. Slowly, Olivia changed. She stopped laughing loudly. She stopped correcting me in public. She wore the dresses I chose. She spoke less at dinners. She became quieter, more polished, more acceptable. And because I was a fool, I thought I had improved her. I did not realize I was erasing her. Then my grandfather had another stroke. Every night, after work, I visited the hospital. And every night, Olivia was already there. Reading to him, feeding him soup, holding his hand while he slept. The nurses adored her. One evening, an older nurse smiled and said, "She has not changed much." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She used to sit with him like this 15 years ago." My blood went cold. 15 years ago? The nurse nodded. She was just a schoolgirl then, visiting her mother next door. But she always came to check on him too. Before I could ask more, she was called away. That night, I could not sleep. 15 years ago. Olivia, my grandfather, a hospital room. Why had nobody told me? A few days later, I walked into Grandpa's room and froze. Olivia was sitting beside him, laughing softly. He looked weaker than ever, but happier than I had seen him in months. "You are losing at chess again," she said. Grandpa grumbled. "She cheats?" "No." "Grandpa," Olivia said. "Grandpa." The word came out so naturally, like she had said it 1,000 times. For the first time, I felt jealous, not because she loved him, but because she knew a version of my grandfather I had never bothered to know. 3 weeks later, Edward Lancaster died. At the funeral, powerful men praised his empire. Politicians praised his influence. Executives praised his discipline. But Olivia stood beside his portrait and cried like a granddaughter, not politely, not beautifully, painfully. I should have held her. Instead, I stood there confused. 2 days later, the family lawyer gave me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a photograph. 16-year-old Olivia beside my grandfather's hospital bed, her backpack on the floor, a cupcake on the table. My grandfather laughing like a man who had forgotten he was sick. With trembling hands, I read the letter. "Adrian, if you are reading this, then I am gone. And before you hate me for forcing your marriage, you deserve the truth. 15 years ago, after my first stroke, everyone promised to visit. Most people lead. Then a 16-year-old girl walked into my room. She was visiting her mother next door. Her mother had collapsed from exhaustion after working 2 jobs. Olivia saw me struggling to pour water and helped me. The next day, she came back. Then the next, she read to me, argued with me, played chess badly, and claimed she won fairly. On my birthday, she brought me a cupcake. She bought with her own money. She had almost nothing, but she gave more than people who had everything. I secretly paid for her mother's surgery. Years later, I found out Olivia had been working after school to repay the hospital because she believed the bill had been covered by charity. She spent years repaying a debt she never owed. That was when I understood her. She was not extraordinary in the way the world measures women. She was extraordinary where it mattered. My eyes blurred, but the final page broke me. I know you wanted beauty, elegance, perfection, but wealth made you blind. You judge people by who impresses strangers. I judge people by who stays when strangers leave. Olivia stayed when the applause around you fades. When money fails, when beauty ages, I wanted someone beside you who loved the man, not the billionaire. That is why I chose her, because I trusted her with my greatest treasure. You, I broke down in that office. For the first time, I understood my grandfather had not trapped me, had tried to save me. Then I remembered everything. Olivia defending the waiter, Olivia. Making budgets during the crash. Olivia sitting beside me in silence. Olivia becoming smaller every time. I corrected her, her laughter fading, her eyes losing light, and suddenly I knew I had not failed to love an ordinary woman. I had failed to recognize an extraordinary one. I rushed home. The mansion was silent. At the front door stood 4 suitcases. Olivia stood beside them. She looked exhausted, not dramatic, not angry, just finished. I am leaving, she said. No, I whispered. I have to, she said. Olivia, please. I read the letter. Her face changed. Pain moved through her eyes. So now you understand? I am sorry, she shook her head. I do not want your apology anymore. Those words cut deeper than any insult. She placed the old photograph on the table. I spent 2 years trying to become the woman you wanted, she said. I changed my clothes, my hair, my voice, my laugh. I stopped arguing. I stopped being honest. I stopped being myself. Tears slipped down her face. And one morning, I looked in the mirror and realized I did not recognize the woman staring back. I fell to my knees, the youngest billionaire in the city, begging on the floor. I was blind, I said. I thought beauty was something people saw, but it was sitting beside me every day. She cried harder because she knew I meant it, but love does not repair everything instantly. Some wounds need distance. Some apologies arrive after the damage is already done. That night, Olivia left, not because she stopped loving me, because she needed to find herself again. And I let her go, because for the first time, I loved her more than I loved being forgiven. The next year changed me. I went therapy. I apologized to employees I had humiliated. I stopped measuring people by polish and money. I visited my grandfather's grave every Sunday and told him the truth. You were right. I did not chase Olivia. I did not send gifts. I did not use money to force my way back into her life. I became better quietly, because even if she never returned, she deserved to have changed at least one thing in me. 18 months later, I walked into a small bookstore, and I heard laughter, real laughter, warm, free, uncontrolled. I turned. Olivia stood near the shelves, laughing with the cashier. Her hair was simple again. Her dress was simple again. Her smile was alive again. Then she saw me. Neither of us moved. For a moment, all I could hear was my heartbeat. I wanted to say 1,000 things. I missed you. I am sorry. I still love you. But instead, I only said, you look happy. She smiled softly. I am. That hurt, but it also healed something in me, because I had finally learned that loving someone did not mean owning their forgiveness. She looked at me for a long moment, and she said, you look different. I am trying to be. I know, she said, and that was all, not forgiveness, not a promise, not an ending, but maybe the smallest beginning. As I left the bookstore, I looked back once. Olivia was holding a book against her chest, smiling to herself, and for the first time in my life, I understood what my grandfather had seen, not an ordinary woman, not an imperfect wife, not someone who needed to be changed, but a woman whose heart was more beautiful than anything money could buy. Maybe some love stories do not end with a kiss. Maybe some end with a man finally becoming worthy of the woman he once failed to see. And maybe the greatest gift my grandfather left me was not his fortune. It was the lesson I learned too. Late, beauty fades, money disappears, but the person who stays when the world leaves, that person is priceless. Now, You tell me, if you were Olivia, would you give Adrian a second chance after he finally changed? Or would you leave forever? Like and subscribe this channel for more videos like this. Love and lies, because every heart has a secret.